Okay, so Meze Audio are releasing an update to the 99 Classic. So it's the 99 Classicer, the Reclassic. I think it's technically a refresh, but I think of it as like a 99 Classic V2, and it is so much better than the original. It's not even close. And in today's video, we're going to get into all the changes that they've made here. I'm weirdly fired up about this one. I wasn't at first, but yeah, I've come around. This one's very interesting. So let's get going with the video. So this is the 99 Classic, the original right here. Weirdly, this is the first headphone that I ever reviewed so many years ago now. I guess it's become kind of like a classic because it's been around for ages, but it's one that I wasn't the biggest fan of. It's kind of got this, woolly and overly thick kind of sound and a little bit on the blunted side of things. It wasn't as clear as I wanted, but if I remember correctly, this was Meze's first foray into the scene, and it spoke to people who wanted a warm, V-shaped, bassy kind of sound. And there had also been some revisions over the years, versions of this with different colors. There's the Neo, there's the Noir, there's rumors of a pad revamp, but all sort of on this same platform. And I'm going to show you guys the differences and the progress that Meze has made. When I got sent this, I was thinking, oh yeah, I guess they have a slightly different look to the cup going on here, and the pads are definitely different. And then I took the pads off and I was like, holy smokes. In a way, it's kind of like a indicator of the sophistication that Meze has developed over the years in terms of their acoustic design, which we will get into. But first, just a quick disclaimer here. This was sent to me by Meze for review. They didn't pay me to say anything in particular about it, and all thoughts and opinions here are my own. So let's get going with the review here, starting with build quality, design, and comfort. Now, if you take a look at the regular 99 Classic, or the previous one here, it looks kind of similar, right? I don't expect the wood here to have any impact really on the sound. Maybe some people will talk about this, but the wood is a cosmetic thing. But everything else is visually very similar. The differences that you're going to notice here are to do with the pads, where the new model has pads that are larger surface area outward. So it's not like overall the space inside the cup is larger. I think that's pretty similar between the two, but you can definitely tell that like it's a wider pad. And I originally didn't like this kind of design change because the top part here would sort of press into the side of my temples and then it would create a gap underneath. It's a common problem for many headphone designs. For larger heads, it doesn't couple quite correctly. But then I remembered that you can kind of bend the headband out a little bit. And I was also able to subtly change the angle of how the cup kind of tapers in and couples to the side of my head. And I found that actually this is very, very comfortable for all of it as it couples to the side of the head. So again, initially I was like, not so great. Then as I kind of dialed in the coupling for my head, it actually works great. And the foam material for this makes it very comfortable. It's sort of like this memory foam material, and the leather on this, or I don't know if it's real leather, it is of a much higher feeling quality than what you get with this here. Higher feeling quality, higher quality feeling, you know what I mean. The other difference is that there is a bass port on the bottom here that does not exist on the original. So the overall design from a visual perspective is pretty similar, but there's a lot of different stuff going on under the hood. And as far as how it wears, like I was saying, this is very, very comfortable for me. Once I kind of bent the bar to be in the right spot to get the coupling to be good, like I can wear this all day. So just to illustrate the kind of improvements that Meze has made to their acoustic design and the sophistication that goes along with that, I want to show you guys what the original baffle structure looks like here. That's what it is. It's essentially a flat baffle, couple of holes on top, and then there's sort of this pad material here. This is the baffle design on the V2. Now, it doesn't matter much unless it sounds good, but just from an overall design capability perspective, you can kind of see the strides that Meze has made over the years in terms of their capabilities. Now, you just saw me take the pads off, and they've introduced this clip system for the pads where they just sort of snap into place there. Ordinarily, I prefer a pad mounting system that allows you to be a little bit more flexible with different types of pads that you might have, kind of like how the original had it. But in this instance, this kind of makes sense because they've also given you some foam insert. Oh, Jesus. Because for this new design, they've also given you these foam inserts that are meant to sit behind the pad, so between the pad and the baffle. So if you're wanting a more warm and laid back kind of sound, you would install the foam tuning inserts here. And if you want a more clarity-focused, neutral-ish kind of sound, then you would run it without these. So with the 99 Classic V2, you have effectively two sound signatures that you can choose from. So of course, there are a couple of other things going on here. You get a case as well. You also get a little dongle that comes with the headphone. Obviously there's a cable, but let's get into what we really care about here, which is the sound quality. So subjectively, when I first put this on without the foam inserts, I didn't love it. And I feel that that's because for me, there was a pretty strong resonance in the mid treble, maybe low to mid treble. That's also in part because the coupling wasn't quite right. I wasn't getting the full fat bass response because again, there was sort of a gap at the bottom for my ear. And it wasn't until I kind of, bent the headband that I was able to get the full bass response to come in. And after I did that, it sort of balanced things out a little bit. The default sound signature that this has is so much better than the original. I've been comparing them back and forth. This is not like the same headphone, just with a couple of additional quirks. This is a very different sounding headphone and different in a very good way without the foam inserts, right? And I'll just describe the sound as a slightly V-shaped take on neutral. That overall for me is a little bit north of where I wanted in the treble, but the bass and the mids are very, very good with this. Like they are exceptional. Bass quality, mid-range textural qualities, clarity throughout the mid-range. This is good for that, right? This is the kind of headphone that has a more intimate presentation, but really it is this kind of intense, punchy, impactful, and incisive kind of sound. Not something that I was sort of expecting from a Meze product. I wasn't a big fan of the 105 Silva. I wasn't a fan of the 105 AER. Some of their other ones in the past, like the 99 Classic, haven't been this at all, but this one is this. So despite me finding this a little bit on the fatiguing side because there's a bit of a peak on my head at least, this one without the inserts, I was genuinely surprised. But just to talk about what happens when you put these foam inserts into here, it gets a lot warmer. They say in their marketing material that this is meant to make it sound a little bit closer to the original 99 Classic, and that's true. It does make it sound closer to that one, but I still think this sounds better with the foam inserts, that you get that warmer kind of sound compared to the 99 Classic. So in my view, you do trade versatility and warmth on the positive side for detail and clarity, right? So you have a little bit less detail and a little bit less clarity as a function of just doing some damping with these foam inserts. And I kind of feel that I want the sound to be like in between the two. Like this effectively gives me two options, neither of which are where I want my treble level to be. But it turns out that there's actually a trick with this one. But first, let's get into the measurements. And just before getting into the measurements, I want you guys to know that this is all made possible by headphones.com. If you want to support what we do here, consider checking out headphones.com the next time you're in the market for a new pair of headphones, or if you just want to read our articles, we have a lot of articles up there that are educational that help with this, or if you want to have access to extremely high quality measurements done on industry standard measurement equipment. Okay, let's get back to it. So what we're looking at here is the measurements done on the B&K 5-2/8. For closed-back headphones and in-ear headphones, we want to be using this system. But the first thing that you notice here is that there is a pretty strong dip going on there in the ear gain. So in that lower treble band at around like 3.5, 4 kilohertz, something like that. And this is a pretty common behavior that I've seen in the past on a number of other designs, like the Beyerdynamic DT770, or the 900, I think has something like that too. And so I wanted to check, like, is this real, or is this just like the way that this is behaving on this one particular head and ears? So I measured it on my own head and found that it also does exist on my own head as well. Maybe not quite as dramatic. It's still kind of in that same spot at around 3.8 kilohertz on my head. But yeah, I am essentially able to confirm that this dip is in fact real. It exists. It's not just a measurement artifact. But one other thing that I noticed is that this also does respond to EQ. Sometimes when you see this kind of stuff, the EQ doesn't really respond the way that you want it to, or like you end up EQing it based on the graph that you see, and then when you put it on your own head, the EQ doesn't really translate because maybe that dip feature is in a slightly different spot and now you've just introduced a peak. But in this instance, at least on my head, that dip is in roughly the same spot. But this dip also has a bit of a consequence to how the overall presentation sounds. I mentioned earlier that I heard a bit of a peak at around 7 to 8 kilohertz. That's not entirely because there is a dramatic peak at around 7 kilohertz. Like basically everything is fine in the treble on its own, apart from this substantial dip, which causes that region in the treble to stand out for me. But quite frankly, everything else about this is very good. The bass has a satisfying thump down low. The mids are very clear, a little bit of forwardness around 2 kilohertz, but it really works with this kind of sound signature. And then the treble for the rest of it is totally smooth. It's just that that dip feature in the ear gain causes some of that treble to come across a little bit on the spicy side for me. And then again, that's where these foam pieces come into play. So you can see here that adding those foam inserts dramatically reduces the ear gain overall, reduces the treble, and kind of pushes the sound more in favor of the low frequencies, which again does make it sound a little bit closer to the original 99 Classic. The original 99 Classic is a lot more uneven throughout its mid-range as well. So you get this kind of bloated and muddier kind of bass. The bass on the new one's a lot cleaner. So whoever their acoustics person is, they've been cooking with this one a little bit. It's still not perfect. As I said, I want the balance here to be kind of in between these two sound signatures, but it turns out there's a solution to this. Goddamn paper towel. You see, I had this thought that like they give you this system to make it sound warmer with this foam material here. What if I put something else in there? And literally the first thing I tried did exactly what I wanted it to, which was paper towel. I'm sure there are other things that you could do here, so I will be trying other things because I find it interesting. Of course, you don't have to do that because you're smart and you know how to EQ by now, right? Right? Huh? Okay, if you don't know how to EQ, we have several guides here on the channel on how to do that. But in this instance, it did respond very well to EQ. I only used like 2 or 3 filters and it sounds very good. Very good, to the point where I look forward to using this headphone. This is a headphone that I genuinely look forward to using in my own personal time when I'm not reviewing. Like, I'd rather use this than just about anything else these days. And there's a reason for that, which maybe we don't talk about this nearly enough. This actually has really good passive attenuation, like passive isolation. So I was actually thinking a weird but also kind of appropriate comparison these days would be with something like the HyperX Cloud 3 Wireless S that I reviewed recently on the channel. I know it's a gaming wireless headset, but it's a very good sounding one. And for the sound quality, like if I couldn't EQ anything at all, I would probably choose that headset. But the problem with it is that it is not the greatest for attenuation, like passive attenuation. This, at least for how it couples on my head, is significantly better. And it's kind of funny because like there's a lot of closebacks out there that they're in the category of closeback, but they don't really do a good job of being a closeback. Like there's one that I was checking out recently that actually amplified the sound coming in, which is not great. So if you too are looking for a closeback headphone for the purposes of it being closeback, this one does do a very good job of that and better than most. Yeah, this is going to sound like, this sounds crazy. I cannot believe that I am heaping this kind of praise on this headphone because it does have issues. And I had issues with the original, right? But yeah, it kind of is shocking me at how much I'm enjoying using it, like how much fun I'm having with this headphone. So again, with no EQ for sound quality, I probably wouldn't choose this. But with EQ, or maybe even the paper towel mod, I'm taking this every day because the passive isolation on this, it makes me have a better time with my life. So briefly to compare this to other closebacks, obviously this is a pretty substantial improvement over the original 99 Classic. I'm not going to say everybody is going to like this one better. There's going to be fans of the original that are like, I miss that warm, blunted, dull kind of sound that this is not doing, right? But, you know, I think for a lot of people who are looking for clarity and detail and that kind of stuff, they're going to prefer this one. But now let's compare it to some of the other ones. I think folks are going to want to know, like, how does this stack up to the Fiio FT1? I think if value is your concern, if you want to get the most bang for your buck in a closeback, the Fiio FT1 is going to end up sounding better by default, but it's not far off. The Fiio FT1 is also kind of dark and it has a dip in that ear gain region as well. And this is going to sound weird, but I actually kind of think this one has a more detailed mid-range presentation. Like it has that slightly forward character there between like 1 and 3 kilohertz that sort of brings some of those mid-range textural qualities forward a little bit more. But I think overall, the Fiio FT1 makes fewer compromises for the overall sound signature. The advantage for this one is once again in that passive attenuation that it has. It's much better than the Fiio FT1. And also the build quality is significantly better, not even close. Compared to the AKG K371, that one is again a little bit better for tone and timbre and versatility, but it's not like the K371 doesn't have its problems in the treble as well. They're both kind of V-shaped in their own unique way. The big issue with the K371 is that it falls apart when you look at it funny, and this one doesn't. It's unlikely to have that problem. We'll see how it holds up over time. So the way I see it still is like if you want a closeback headphone that is really good value, you still go for the FT1. These other ones are good choices, and now the 99 Classic V2 is also one of those good choices, where maybe the previous one was less of a good choice. And for me personally, this is the one that actually has the best passive attenuation that I've come across out of any of these. And for that reason, it's the one that I'm probably going to end up using as like my daily go-to closed back headphone. I was so ready to be like, okay, the wireless gaming headsets are the way to go. They are better. Because they are. Like, the ones that are coming out these days are just better. They're doing things in that space that is making for better sound quality than what most passive closed back headphones are able to achieve, even the expensive high-end ones. But they do not isolate as well as this. So if I'm not going to be using IEMs, I'm probably going to be using this for a closed back situation where I need passive attenuation. So in conclusion, the Meze 99 Classic V2 is a massive improvement over the original. That's not to say that it's perfect or free from issues, but in saying that, this is one that genuinely surprised me, and it's one that I'm going to continue using. And that's going to do it for this video. Once again, if you guys are interested in any of the additional measurements to do with the Meze 99 Classic V2, you can check that out at forum.headphones.com. That'll be linked in the description. If you want to chat with me or other like-minded audio folks, you can do so in our Discord, also linked below. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.